5-session webinar on product design development. And so we have formulated in such a way that people, like many of us, would get an awareness on elements in design development, right from beginning of conceptualization, or just before conceptualization also, problem ideating, or enhancing or getting more clarity over the problem. Okay, that's the stage one that we're talking about. That's design thinking process, where we are consolidating on the pain point, where it's not just for us alone, for me alone, or for industry expert alone, but for everyone, right? So that's what we kind of did in design thinking. How do you visualize an idea or a concept, okay, that we talked about just now, into a physicality, untangible, so that you get a sense of tangibility, of physicality to it. We'll talk about it in prototyping. In this session, what I'm trying to, what we'll also hear about is, why do we need to prototype? Now, we may have a particular idea or a concept which sounds really potential, and it sounds breakthrough for them, but then should we really do a prototype, or do we directly venture into a product development? That's what we're going to see. Why do we need to prototype? However potential is the idea. If I get an idea, like, I'll be overwhelmed if the idea, and then I would think that it's going to be a revolutionary idea. But then should I prototype it, or directly jump into the product, or put all my money into the product, right? And try to create a capital intensive techniques, right? No, I won't do that. So why I'm not going to do that? Like, that's what we're going to see in why prototyping. One of the things that I want to touch upon in this prototyping session is secret feature of a brain. It sounds fascinating, right? Secret feature of a brain, and under why prototype. Lean prototyping process. How optimally can we develop something? Okay, that's what we're going to see, lean prototyping. And methods. While we are talking about lean prototyping, we'll also talk about some methods using which we could prototype it better way, for a better comprehensibility. And then case study examples. Examples also talk about how INDQ have created certain products undergoing this process of prototyping, right? And then Q&A. This slide right away seemed to be off from what we're trying to discuss. All right, you see a sloth, right, on the screen. Now, let me tell you, the sloth is one of the laziest creature on earth, right? So the sloth. Our human brain is also like a sloth. I mean, many of us quite evidently feel that we are so lazy, and then try to compare it with the sloth. The reason why I emphasized prototyping is really important in the design process. By default, if you guys have attended in the previous session, we were talking about consciousness and unconscious living, right? Unconsciously, all of us live a significant amount of time. Like some of the gentlemen said, 90% of the time that we live in unconscious mind. So when I say unconscious mind, what happens is, we see a brain, right? What happens is, the leaf-like structure in the hind brain, the bottom of the brain, there lies the motor activity and the whole motion, the body balance and everything. By default, we stay in unconscious mind, in the hind brain, which is cerebellum, until unless that we actively invoke. While you're riding a car or a bicycle or a bike, you don't consciously keep an effort to understand which gear are we at, the second gear, third gear, fourth gear, which gear. We don't consciously keep a mind on that. It's a regular activity. It is a recorded activity which is there in the balancing and that activity of the cerebellum. So unconsciously you do that. Like, if you put in a conscious effort, when I say conscious effort, it's like activating different regions of the brain. It's like activating different regions of the brain. For example, if you're looking at image like a sloth, okay, the image which is right in front of you, the sloth, you get, okay, the visual perception of a sloth and interpreting that it is a sloth. It's not a direct photo of a sloth, but you are interpreting that it to be a sloth, meaning the logical thinking of your brain, which is a frontal brain, would think that, okay, interpret the image to be a sloth. If I'm showing the sloth, you're consciously putting an effort to understand and interpret it as a sloth, meaning not just the visual area of your brain and the logical brain of your, which is a frontal part of the brain, or all of them slightly, at least 4 or 5 connections are to be made for you to interpret that it is a sloth, right? Now, if I'm not keeping a sloth and directly an image of the brain, but it is really difficult for you to comprehend, but then so your brain tend to be reserved that it is usual and unconscious. Okay, unconscious, because so as I was mentioning, by default your brain is under unconscious mind. I hope you're able to interpret, right, like what I'm trying to say. So again, coming back to the point of why it is related prototyping. Since all of us are in default in that state of unconscious mind, so what happens while you're prototyping is you're consciously making an effort, okay, by having a physicality in front of you, some physical objects in front of you, meaning if you're looking at any of the objects, then there are certain elements that are connected